You're listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast, a show where a philosopher and a rocket scientist try to make sense of the Cleveland Browns. The Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science podcast is a part of the Fanatical Elves Podcast Network, a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Elliot Kennel and Joel Cade.
Hey, welcome to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science. And this week's kind of a special edition because for the first time in, God knows how long, we actually have a football game. And so we're going to talk about an opponent. And I'm pretty excited about this because we brought in a great guest to have come talk to us about our opponent, the New York Jets. So say hi, Dan. Introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Dan Burnham, and I am the host of the This is the Jet Life podcast, part of Fans First Sports Network, and basically just been a Jets fan my whole life. My dad's been a Jets fan his whole life and got me into it, so I'm part of the ride and ready to have some fun this season. Can't wait for this game this week.
So you're kind of like a Browns fan. You just inherited this torture and punishment from your parents?
Yeah, it was my dad. I was 4 years old, and he said that I could either I said I wanted to be a Cowboys fan because I was big into
Oh, my God.
And I heard of the team and stuff, and he said, "You're a Jets fan or you can move out of this house." I said, I'm a Jets fan. And then, from there, it was good. The Jets were good in the 90s when I was 8 years old. At 98, 99, the team was good. So,
okay.
For me.
Well, you have our sympathies. I think that the Browns and the Jets are very similar in that we haven't done anything good in about 50 years. I do remember very well the last time the Jets were really good in Super Bowl III. That is still the most memorable football game for me when Joe Willie led the Jets to an incredible upset victory. At that time, I'll tell you what, the NFL championship was the big game, and the Browns lost that game to the Baltimore Colts. It was some kind of terrible score.
Ooh.
50 to 3 or something like that. It was slaughter. We just absolutely got killed. And then I thought, well, okay, but Joe Namath was an evil man. He had a Fu Manchu mustache. And our coaches said that you were not supposed to have facial hair. And he had audacity, predicted victory, and he was going to get punished. Earl Morrall and the greatest defense in the history of the NFL, which they were up to that time, they were going to punish Joe Namath. And I was shocked. My life would never be the same again. Joe Namath and Ann Margaret and all these women with bikinis and stuff, the whole world changed with Super Bowl III. Everything was different, and it was not a fluke. Super Bowl IV proved that the AFL was actually tactically better, and my world was never the same. And actually, the Jets
was it the football or was it the bikinis, man? I just want to know.
No, it was both. It was both. It was a cultural revolution. It was a football revolution. My whole world came apart. It was different. I wanted to be a quarterback, and I really did play on a gravel field in the sixth grade at Central Elementary School, which is 100 years old, and we had a gravel field. We played tackle football at lunch.
Are you 100, Elliot? What is this?
That sounds painful.
Elliot survived the Depression, the stock market crash of 39.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. It was all for real. But anyway, yeah, we're kind of the same. Nothing good has happened to the Cleveland Browns or the New York Jets since the 1960s. Hey,
hold on. I want to say this, though. I will say, Dan, congratulations on the Jets Super Bowl victory.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
My dad and I watch it every summer when there's no football just to relive it. It's got it recorded, and it's a great game.
I swear to you, though, when I watch it, to this day, when I watch it, and I've watched it about 4 times, I still think Baltimore is going to win when I watch it. I still cannot believe that the Jets are going to win this game, even though I know what's going to happen, even though I've seen it. It's just unbelievable. But okay, hey, I wanted to ask you about this. The organizations are famous for doing the wrong thing. We totally sympathize with you. How can you explain Dalvin Cook? We're not going to see him in the exhibition game because why? He's not going to be on the team, apparently. How did that happen? How did you guys screw this up? Well, it's not your team.
We're starting with the easy ones.
Cover screwed this up.
So I don't think they screwed it up. I think that there's a lot going on right now. He's got interest from a few teams. The Dolphins and Jets are the most notable right now. Patriots are in the mix. Cowboys could be as well. He basically said that he wasn't going to sign anywhere when he did our meeting without talking to his family and going through his process. So we didn't really expect him to. It's always possible when a guy enters your facility, he doesn't leave. But it's also possible when he says, hey, whatever comes, I'm going to talk to my family first before I make a decision. And that's what he's doing, I think. I think the Jets are probably doing something like a $4.5, $5 million offer with maybe an incentive for another $1 million, probably something pretty low, to have him come in and be running back 2. And he's a guy that you can consider him a luxury or a necessity, depending on where Breece Hall's at. And that's something that we're all kind of waiting to see as well. So it's hard for us to say just how important Dalvin Cook is, just how much does he have left in the tank, how ready is Breece Hall going to be, because that's going to be the number one guy as soon as he's ready.
Yeah, for our fan base, the Cleveland fan base, we don't know who Breece Hall is, but can you tell us how, he's a guy that had, 5.8 yards per carry last season, got hurt. How is he? Is he coming back, or what's his schedule like?
So he tore his ACL in week 7 last year. He's hitting like 23 miles per hour straight line right now. But as you know, ACL is all left and right lateral movement. So he's got to work on that lateral movement. He's not ready to do that exactly right now. They say that he was not going to play in the first preseason game against the Browns for sure. And then he's probably going to be ready for like team drills and stuff. They said somewhere like a few weeks from today, which would be starting to get back into football right before the season begins. So that leaves you with a little bit of like, maybe it's going to be week 3, week 4 until we really see him back. But maybe it's like Saquon Barkley and it's a whole year before he's really back.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here real quick, Elliot. So for Browns fans, the Jets are kind of like a team that plays the style that the Browns have played on offense. You have the outside zone, wide zone offense, a lot of quarterback rollouts, a lot of mid crossers across the field with your wide receivers, the backside the deep end on the backside, the kind of the famous Kyle Shanahan style offense. So what the Jets do is very similar to what the Browns do. The Browns and the Jets are literally, like Elliot mentioned earlier, like they're like the same team. They're running the same offense. They were running the same defense until we fired Joe Woods, but that's that kind of gap control scheme. So when we talk about running backs for the Jets, we're talking about the bread and butter right now because the team is built on that outside zone, and then everything kind of comes off of the passing game comes off that outside zone. So given that that's the case, are you hoping for Breece Hall back? Because that outside zone requires like a slow to the hole and then burst through the hole. Do you think he's going to have that burst to make that an effective run for him this season with that ACL injury?
That's the question. And I think the worry and the reason that Dalvin Cook's being considered and brought in right now is because Breece Hall probably, if I'm guessing, is not going to have that right away to the level that he will. To the level that he will at the end of the year or next year. It's going to be, maybe he's going to be a good, efficient running back, but not what I think is one of the most elite running backs in the league. And Dalvin Cook kind of gives an opportunity for the Jets to get another guy that can play a similar style and can kind of help weather the storm for weeks 1 through 5. The Jets have a very tough schedule early in the season. And if Aaron Rodgers is going to play 1 or 2 seasons, we can't afford to go 1-4 because the schedule was hard. We couldn't get the run game going early to set up everything else, to get the new guys comfortable in the offense. We got to win early. We got to be 500 after the first 6 games at least. And they got to have a running back that's going to be able to help them get there.
Yeah, and to stay on this, hold on, let me stay on this. To stay on this, Dalvin Cook does run that same offense when he was in Minnesota. They too run that same kind of Shanahan outside zone kind of situation scheme. With Aaron Rodgers coming in, and I'm not going to jump ahead. We're going to stay on running backs. With Aaron Rodgers coming in, do you still see the Jets going to stay with that outside zone, or do you think the offense is going to look different now that you have a quarterback, so you can become more reliant on the quarterback, kind of the same way the Browns are doing with Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, I do expect a change. I think that the Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett offense is predicated on the run, and it's usually predicated on, two backs, and usually one of them is a receiving back, and Aaron Rodgers likes to throw to his running backs with a lot more efficiency than Zach Wilson or any of the other Jets quarterbacks. It's actually going to be an effective play for us now. And I don't want to get to the quarterbacks too much, but I think what we're doing is with the Mike LaFleur offense of last year, the Jets had was a wide zone. The Nathaniel Hackett offense, they kind of call it like the Aaron Rodgers offense. And the style of it is very different. And I don't know if you want me to go into the quarterback stuff now or if you want to stay on running backs.
We'll stay on running backs, but go ahead.
I got
Anything you want to talk about is fine, though.
Well, in terms of the quarterback, something I found really interesting is some of the guys like CJ Uzomah, you guys are probably familiar with. So CJ Uzomah was, with the Bengals for a long time. He's 30-something years old, been in the league. And he basically said that through this training camp, what he's learned is he used to do 12-yard route and then you turn. You're supposed to be in a specific spot, and that's the quarterback throw. It's got to be exactly the exact same timing, steps and everything to be on time. In the offense they're running now, he said if it's a 12-yard run, you can't run 6 yards, but you can go 9 or 14. You're supposed to just find the open spot, and Aaron Rodgers is going to find them. So they're actually, for the first time in his career, not playing through a set number and a set pattern. It's more with the flow. It's a lot of freedom, and it's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. So I'm not exactly sure how much outside zone, how much up the middle. I know it's going to be a lot of running. I know it's going to be a lot of freedom. It's going to be a lot of Aaron Rodgers at the helm, just doing audibles and quick pre-snap reads.
And that's why you bring him in, to do that.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, Elliot, go on, man.
Yeah, I had a question. Speaking of running backs, I think the rest of the NFL screwed up. They've got this thing that, all running backs are the same. They can all gain 1,000 yards. And, when Breece Hall went down, the Jets just put in a guy and he got 1,000 yards, right? Well, that didn't happen. That didn't really happen, did it? It does make a difference who you have. And in that way, the rest of the NFL screwed up in the NFL draft. And the Jets got this kid in the 5th round, this guy, Israel, help me out, Abanikanda.
Yeah.
And this guy, from what I can tell, is really lights out. Why don't you tell us about him?
Yeah, so he went to Pitt, and he had a lot of really good running numbers that are in line with a lot of some of the best players from Pittsburgh, some great running backs in history, one of them being Curtis Martin from the Jets. He's right up there with those guys. And he's coming here to the Jets right now with an opportunity to kind of come in there and maybe spell Breece Hall and some of those guys early in the season. But I guess he's having a little bit of inconsistency. He's had a few fumbles and a few major runs. He's had a couple comments from the coaches saying he's got to improve his urgency, which is something you don't really want to hear about a rookie. It's like, if you're lacking urgency as a rookie, when do you get the urgency then? So that's some of the stuff that maybe gives us pause and maybe makes us think a little bit, more about a guy like Dalvin Cook or Kareem Hunt still available, maybe something like that.
Pause. Well, that's very interesting because that's what I wrote in an article today. I wrote that this guy is really, really fast and has tremendous production in college, but his hand size is like 8 1/4 or something like that. He's very small hands. And so I thought this guy is the perfect New York Jet. He had a tremendous ability to carry the ball, but he had an injury which prevented him from running the 40-yard dash at the combine. I don't like that. But he was like a 4.3 something, so they say unofficially at Pitt Pro Day. And then his hand size was too small to be a running back, really. It was like, 8 3/8 or something really small. And so I thought, great. So he can really make some breakout runs, perhaps, and also maybe put the ball on the carpet a few times and maybe have an injury problem or two. So I thought that's the perfect formula for the Jets. But I think he's going to make yards. I think he's going to be ready on week 1. And, they're just going to have to live with some erratic behavior. But in the 5th round, the NFL screwed up. They can't let a guy like that last until the 5th round. That's nuts.
Yeah, we were happy. I mean, it's a position that we wanted more depth at. We had a little bit of inconsistency with our number 2 through 4 running backs last year. And I think they're kind of trying to fill that gap, especially with the injury. So I hope he's great. I expect inconsistency. We know running backs that are rookies and fumble and stuff, that's a short leash usually in the NFL. That's a recipe to lose games very fast, and coaches don't have a lot of tolerance for that sort of thing. So if you can't hold on to the football, it will be an issue. If you can make some big plays, it'll be very welcomed in this offense.
Yeah, it'll work both ways, but yeah, you have, he'll win some games, I think.
And I think he's going to be the Duke Johnson of the Jets.
Yeah.
Duke Johnson is versatile, does a lot of things, but fumbles every game and gets hurt every game.
Yeah, well, I like Duke Johnson too, but okay. All right.
Hey, we're going to go to a commercial break here, Elliot, unless you've got more running back stuff.
No, I think I'm done. I think that was the thing that I wanted to say.
So let's head to our commercial break here. After the break, I've got an announcement and someone to put some kudos out there. We're going to come back and talk Jets quarterback, and we're going to talk about the Hall of Fame game, and we're hopefully going to help get to a point where Dan doesn't regret coming on our show. So hang on. We'll be back.
Okay.
All right, and we're back. Thanks for hanging on there. Hope you guys buy the stuff that's being advertised. Head on over to the Fanatical Elves store, pick up the merchandise. Elliot, do we have the link for that?
Nope.
Cool. So go to the store, buy the merch. And I also wanted to make a kind of a special thank you. A couple years ago, my mom died. That's not what I'm saying. But a couple years ago, my mom died, and I had a large outpouring of friends and family to console me and to help me get through that time. But nothing that they have done to help me console for my mom has prepared me for today. The outpouring that people have come to me to help me in my grief, to offer condolences, and to support me in this time. And in case you guys don't know, my beloved Pee Wee Herman died. Pee Wee Herman. You don't know who Pee Wee Herman is?
Who did he play for?
No.
I'm sorry for your loss. I did see that today. I didn't even know.
Pee Wee Herman was amazing. His name was Paul Rubens, but Pee Wee Herman is amazing.
Saw some of the movies at Pee Wee's Playhouse when I was a kid with the talking objects.
Pee Wee Herman. There we go. My Bike. Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Elliot, you can remember Super Bowl III, but you don't know about the greatness of the Pee Wee's Playhouse?
I never really got the Pee Wee Herman vibe.
Oh my gosh.
Are
you kidding?
He was sort of an adult entertainer, and then he became a children's entertainer, and then they decided, we should have kept him in the adult column all along.
I'll tell you what, Pee Wee Herman would be long missed. And I want to thank everyone for the outpouring. And I want to thank whoever's playing that. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Is that you, Elliot? You put the Pee Wee Playhouse out there for me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back to football. But thank you to everyone who supported me in my trying time of the loss of Pee Wee Herman. I mean, my beloved Pee Wee Herman. Guy was awesome. Roll out the foil ball. Are we done with the running backs, Elliot? Are you satisfied?
I'm totally done with the running backs. Yeah, but
right.
We can watch for those guys. Look for the rookie in the Hall of Fame game, perhaps, and see if he fumbles. But he'll probably score a touchdown, man. He's fast, and he's good, and he had like 1,800 yards from scrimmage for Pitt. Man, he's going to be something. I'll tell you what. Then they should never, how do they let running backs go to the 5th round? That doesn't make any sense.
All right, let's transition to quarterbacks. So the big acquisition this offseason for the Jets was Aaron Rodgers. Tell us about the process and your personal thoughts, Dan, about Aaron Rodgers before Elliot kills the vibe.
Oh, he can't kill this vibe. This vibe is too high. He can't.
He'll kill it. Just watch.
Yeah.
This is Jets right now. Obviously, I do a Fans First Sports Network podcast, so I'm on record with a lot of takes and stuff. Aaron Rodgers has, since the very beginning of the process, been the number one guy, regardless of the contract size, which at the time was, over $107 million at the least. And it didn't make a difference. Knew that contract, knew what Derek Carr and everybody else could be paid, wanted him, had to have him. Couldn't believe it when he said that he wanted to play for the Jets. They were able to make a deal happen where I think that, did they give up a little bit more than the Jets wanted to give up? Probably at the time. Did the Packers get a little bit less than they wanted for one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen play? Probably. So that probably means it's a pretty good negotiation overall if both sides are left a little bit unhappy. But since he's been here, I mean, it's just been unbelievable. There's so many things every single week that happen with Aaron Rodgers, whether it's talking to coaches, talking to the media, sticking up for coaches, working with our players, changing our offense, bringing other guys with him. It's just unbelievable what he's done. And then he took this massive pay cut this week to bring his contract down to $75 million over 2 years. So now he's getting paid, I don't know, probably like a tenth of what Deshaun Watson gets paid to do, a quarter of the work.
See, you can slam us all you want. We're fine. I do have a question for you. What is the the Jets organization's obsession with former Packer quarterbacks? Now, I have been around enough to watch the Brett Favre era in New York, and we've all seen the pictures. We've all seen the issues. And do you anticipate Aaron Rodgers playing in Minnesota next year?
I don't see him playing in Minnesota. I think that when you play in Wisconsin for long enough, I think that New York looks pretty cool. And I think maybe that helps.
Oh, my gosh. He's like slamming Wisconsin.
I went to Wisconsin last year, and I was glad to be back here on the East Coast. So I don't blame him for that one.
Oh, what did you not like about Wisconsin? Where'd you go? Where'd you go in Wisconsin?
I went to Eagle River.
Okay, so where's that in the state? Because I'm not that familiar with Wisconsin.
It's either north or south.
Okay, well, yeah, everything's either north or south.
Or
So, did you go to Milwaukee?
No, I went to Eagle
Okay.
River. I stayed out there
You need
for
to
a
go
while.
to Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a great place to go visit.
Well, that's like Eagle River Outfitters. Is that the same place? Is that?
I don't know. I wish I didn't say I went to Wisconsin. I don't know enough about it now.
That's fine.
I put up with a week there, and I came back. I stayed in the town that I was in.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Favre, and I guess the really perhaps encouraging thing about Favre is that when he went to Minnesota and had a really great year, he was 40. And so he had a kind of a down year at age 39, but
Here
he had
comes
a
Dan.
great year at 40. So there is cause for optimism that you can get better at age 40, but it's really kind of rare. And I'm not real, sold completely on Aaron Rodgers. I think it is possible that he'll come back and have a great, fantastic year. But I kind of think, man, I think maybe he really is kind of 40-ish, and I'm not sure that he's really going to have that fantastic of a year. But, again, the Jets and the Browns are two of the most quarterback-obsessed franchises in the NFL. They are way overinvested, in my opinion, in quarterbacks. I like Deshaun Watson. I'm not sure that I want to spend $230 million on anybody. I think you're probably better off having 3 defensive ends instead of one quarterback at that price. But
Tried that last year.
let me lay some weird statistic on you.
How'd that work, Dan, when you
You had a
tried
great-
that last year?
It was awesome with the defensive line. Set the whole defense up.
By the way, that's what they did this year. Now that they got Aaron Rodgers, what'd they do with their first round draft pick? Did they get a offensive tackle? No, they drafted a defensive end that they didn't need. I'm not real sure that was a smart idea. But anyway, what a proxy is?
You have to remind me something like a
Okay, well, what they do? It's not exactly the thing that you're wanting to observe, but it's something that is similar enough that it might let you make a judgment about it. And so what I wanted to do is I looked at the rushing yards per game for Aaron Rodgers, and I want to use that as a proxy for determining his degeneration due to age. And I want to just look at him since 2016.
Do you have a screen or something I can throw up here, Elliot?
Now, let me just read it to you. You'll get the
Okay.
idea.
All right. Okay.
Okay, it's 2016. He had 23 yards per game. Next year, 18, then 16.8, then 11.4, then 9.3, then 6.3, Then last year, 5.5. Now that's a trend. He's been going down every year. Now he's not getting paid to run the ball, but what it's saying is that his body is deteriorating, and I just think he's getting older.
Does it show which MVP?
Pardon?
Does it show which years he won MVP?
Oh yeah, he won MVP. Yeah, he did win MVP. He had a great team behind him in 2020 and 2021. There's no question about that. Although, his passing dropped off precipitously in 2022. That one is for sure. Now, whether or not 1 year doesn't necessarily make a trend, so you wouldn't say, well, he had one bad year, that's a trend. But if you look at his running totals, that is a trend. And then you wonder, well, okay, is he going to bounce back in his passing, what we're really interested in? And I don't know.
All right, Elliot, let's let Dan have a turn on this one. Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, I would say that he will. I will say that the numbers went down as he got older. I think older players want to get hit less and less as they age. And I think that he showed that being able to do that, going from 23 or so yards he said he started at, and then winning MVP at about 9, it didn't really affect his ability to play high-level quarterback. You want to talk about trends, he was winning MVP every single season, 2020, 2021. Then he does a season without Devontae Adams and Nathaniel Hackett. He has young receivers in Green Bay and not his offensive coordinator. Now he comes to a team that has the best receivers he's played with maybe in his whole career, as well as his same old offensive coordinator from those years ago. So I think the 1 year that was odd was probably last year. And we feel good about the prospect of him coming in here and picking up where he left off back in 2021.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get any argument from us about Garrett Wilson.
He's awesome.
Oh, yeah,
being from Ohio, watching him at Ohio State, I don't think you're going to get an argument from us.
I think so too. But I also, though, I'll push the opposite way on Zach Wilson. How valid was he tested last year? Because he didn't have any offensive tackles, lost both offensive tackles due to injury, and then he lost his really good running back. And so he's operating with a guy that had 3.5 yards per carry as his stud running back, no offensive tackles. And, his production wasn't great at quarterback, but he wasn't, in my mind, he wasn't really terrible. He just wasn't, he wasn't average. He was way below average. But I thought, I don't know that that's horrible. His problem is he played in New York, I think. I think if he's a normal quarterback.
Well, I guess Dan did slam Wisconsin, so I guess Midwest strikes back, I guess.
No, what I wrote in my article today is that the fan base and the writers are rabid. Now, rabid can mean that they're staunch fans, or it can mean that they really do have rabies. And in New York, man, the community really does have rabies when it comes to quarterbacks. And I think that the kid probably can be taught to play quarterback. I think he has the arm and he has the accuracy, but he didn't have any tools to work with last season. And if he did have some really good tools, if they drafted offensive linemen and stuff like a normal team, he probably could play quarterback. What do you think about that hypothesis?
Yeah, it's tough to play with guys like Elijah Moore.
Yeah, how about that?
We don't have real receivers. Can be tricky, but no, Elijah's a solid enough player. But
that's pretty good. I appreciate it.
Zach Wilson has the athletic ability. He's got the speed, the arm, all that like intangible stuff that just you see in a quarterback, the size, all that. What happens with him is he can't process things quickly. And with the Shanahan, Mike LaFleur offense, there's supposed to be a lot of easy reads and easy throws and checkdowns and stuff. And he makes the easy stuff look so difficult. He's constantly scrambling. He flushes out of the pocket instead of up in the pocket. He's not confident enough to do that. So he's really playing frazzled, which is kind of how Geno Smith played for the beginning of his career. We witnessed Sam Darnold for his career, Zach Wilson. We've had 3 quarterbacks come in, high prospects, just totally underwater, not able to pick up the NFL speed. And sometimes guys never get it. And other times a guy like Geno Smith gets it when he's 28, 29 years old, and all of a sudden, for the first time in his career, the game slows down enough where his intangibles start to play a factor in his game. And I think that when Zach Wilson gets there, whether it's this year working behind Rodgers, whether it's 3 years from now, I think he definitely can. And when he does process correctly, he'll be a good player. But until then, he is just going to be a kind of a chicken with his head cut off. And we're hoping that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy that settles him down for the first time to let him just work on thinking, shows him the game in a new way, and hopefully he gets there. I haven't given up on Zach Wilson, and I like him as the number 2 quarterback, but I also don't want to see him play at all this year.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see him play, but I'll tell you what, I'd like to see the Jets actually seriously address their offensive line. I don't know that do you believe in Mekhi Becton? Is he going to play?
No, probably not. At this point, I'm like hoping for 5 games this year just to get us through a certain amount. I think that.
Wait a minute, do the Jets not play a 17-game season like everybody else?
No, they do. He's missed basically 2 full years, and then he comes into camp this year and he's on a pitch count right now. And you'd think that after not playing for 2 years, like, okay, you're finally healthy. It's been both knees. He's a huge guy, and it's a tricky situation. I don't know exactly. I'm rooting for the guy, and you're always going to be optimistic, and you never know when these guys will turn it around. But to expect him to play 17 games would be.
Yeah. So why didn't they draft a tackle in the first round? Instead, they drafted another defensive end.
Yeah, when Broderick Jones fell, the board didn't go exactly the way they wanted it to. And so I think they took the best talent available at a position where they know in a few years the salary cap situation will be pretty beneficial to have a good young pass rusher.
Yeah, so they're going to wait a few years for Aaron Rodgers to develop. And in the meantime, they're going to build up their –
Be nice, Elliot.
Is that the plan?
No, they're going to have his rotational pass rusher and a heavy rotation defensive front and have him get after the quarterback. Hopefully be a game record.
Elliot, you saw this same defense in Cleveland, right? Except our general manager didn't think that defensive linemen were important, but their head coach is intelligent enough to understand that if you're going to have an attacking gap defense, you need to have defensive linemen that can attack gaps. So they went out and they got those players so that this defense looked like in San Francisco, where you have 4 tremendous players on your defensive line, that they set the tone for everything else that goes on. Now, we decided for whatever reason in Cleveland that we just weren't going to go down that route. We were just going to draft a whole bunch of defensive backs and then pray that the defensive line can do something. And then when they didn't, except for Myles Garrett, we're all just like, why doesn't this defense work? Because it's not being run the way it's designed. That's the short of that one for you, Elliot. But yeah. I'm going to ask you about Mekhi. No, I want my shot on Mekhi Becton here. So Mekhi Becton, he's like what, 7'12" and 570 pounds, and
I think he's 370 pounds.
Man, I will say, the Browns just drafted a guy like this out of Ohio State, but I always wonder why people draft people this that big, right? At some point, the guy has to move, and he's looking like Andre the Giant out there. I mean, Andre the Giant was big and can come at you, but he couldn't move, and that's who I think Mekhi Becton is right now. I think he should go into pro wrestling.
He's incredibly nimble for how big he is, or he was when he was healthy. But once you start getting those knee injuries, it's hard to recover at that.
Especially on big guys.
Hard to recover at that size on the knee, and he's got both now. And it's
So isn't right tackle also a question mark right now for the Jets? Not just left tackle?
You're both tackles. We have a lot of guys that want to play left tackle, and none of them that are really healthy enough or good enough to do it. And then we have nobody that wants to play right tackle, and no one that's really good enough to do it. So
here's my concern on that. Here's my concern on tackle. Aaron Rodgers played in Green Bay with Bakhtiari, who was a tremendous left tackle. And you still saw his rushing numbers go down, which means he's taking more sacks on a good offensive line. Now, the Jets may not have the offensive line that Green Bay has. Is there a concern for protecting Aaron Rodgers, or do you think there will be alleviated in some way, or are the Jets in the market for a tackle?
I think it's going to have to be good. I think that the Jets' goal is to have Aaron Rodgers play more than 1 year, and you're not going to have a guy at that age play more than 1 year if he's getting smoked every play. Who wants to do that? The whole experience works better blocked for. So they have Dwayne Brown, who they hope if he gets healthy can play left tackle, and that's the first possible positive guy that you'd have out there. Mekhi Becton, you got a chance for him. They drafted a player. They have another guy coming back from last year. They have a couple other players they brought in that were second string guys on other teams. They're kind of going through some stuff, but I do think that with the Aaron Rodgers pay cut, they're going to be able to make a move if they need to. And Aaron Rodgers, when he voluntarily said, you can pay me $35 million less, he said that their plan and the conversations they had were there are going to be some players available down the road that are going to be worth this money, and we're going to have the ability to go get them. And I think that our general manager, Joe Douglas, has learned from what the Packers did in not making Aaron Rodgers happy by meeting his quote-unquote demands or requests. I think that they're going to be in lockstep trying to find guys, and if tackle's what they need, they got the money to go do it. They're not going to waste this window. They'll go trade for some elite tackle if they have to. Maybe they'll trade a first-round pick if they need to do it.
Cool. All right, Elliot, you got any more on quarterbacks?
No. Just the offensive line discussion. That was really my next question. I think you've answered that. I'm a skeptic on the offensive line. But,
that too would be my concern for the Jets. Would just be, okay, you've got your quarterback, you've got your receivers, you've got a pretty decent tight end, right? You've got what seems to be a pretty good offense set up. And with Aaron Rodgers, he's a tremendous quarterback, right? He can direct that offense and get everyone in lockstep. That might take you a couple games to get everybody in the right spot and thinking in the same way, but you've got to be able to protect him because he's not 21 anymore. So you got to be able to protect him. So that would be, I guess, the kink in the armor is that offensive line, particularly those tackles. Don't feel bad, Dan. We do this to every team we talk about. We just start breaking down stupidity.
No, I agree.
We just start breaking down stuff.
No team's got it all.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. So I was looking at reading all this Jets news before the podcast tonight, and I saw this power rankings from Sports Illustrated, and it looks like the Jets are ranked 7th in the power rankings.
Too
right?
low.
You think that's low? So give me your explanation for what you think. Where do you rank the Jets?
I think the Jets are going to compete for the best defense in the NFL this year, and I think that it would be basically a slam dunk if a few players stay healthy to be top 5. So that alone, you're already going to be one of the better teams when you have a defense like that. You put in the offensive skill positions that they have, you put in a quarterback like that, a belief around the organization, the ability to be flexible with the salary cap and some moves and stuff, the understanding of the urgency and the window that we have where we're actually looking at players like Dalvin Cook this late in the process. He's not the last guy they're going to look at in this process either. I mean, they're bought into this team and what they're going to do. I feel really good about it. And it's one of those things where, we're Jets and Browns fans, so we kind of expect the worst because every single time things look good, it doesn't go that way.
This is kind of what I was going to go at next. Like, now that you expect all this great stuff, what do you really think is going to happen?
I have fears every night about guys tearing their ACLs, never seeing this team actually play. Like, if we had, what if it didn't, all that stuff happening. But right now you can't think like that. And on paper, I feel as good as anybody. I feel like we can go up against the Bills, Patriots, and Dolphins and win this division. I think if we win that division, we can win a couple playoff games against those teams in the AFC.
All right, one more question about the power rankings. So I'm looking through this power rankings, and I'm looking at this team at number 5 that I cannot believe is sitting at 5. Elliot, what team do you think is sitting at 5?
Buffalo.
Oh, no. The team sitting at Buffalo, I think, was 4 or 3. I mean, they were pretty up. No, actually, they're not. No, number 5 was the Baltimore Ravens, and I can't figure out how the Baltimore Ravens are at number 5. So I know I'm a biased Browns fan who hates the fact that my Cleveland Browns are in Baltimore disguising themselves as the Ravens. So I guess my question for you, Dan, is what do you think the Ravens are going to do this year? And the answer is suck, by the way, but go ahead.
The Ravens were the only team I put money on to win the Super Bowl last year. And I think that they had a lot of horrible luck over the last few years with basically the way that their offense runs. The most important players in their team have been injured, making it very difficult. Their offensive tackles, their running backs. I mean, that's what that team needs to do. And they lost, 4 running backs and 3 tackles. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what the team's supposed to do, it's going to fall apart pretty quickly. 4 or 5 seems high. I would say that they're probably, 9 would be probably my guess without looking at all the teams, just taking a shot at it. I think that they're one of the better teams in the league for sure. And I think they're going to compete with the Bengals for the division over there.
And what do you think the Browns' chances are?
It's hard to tell. The Browns have a lot of spicy players, a lot of flashy names, and a quarterback that, I'm not sure has it anymore because he had this innate ability, and you thought that Deshaun Watson, he was a guy that just could play backyard ball. He showed up on the Texans and just started balling out right out of college. It just came naturally to him, it seemed like. And everything that was natural when he played with the Browns last year wasn't natural. So all of a sudden you're just like, where was all that pop and that X factor and that stuff that he had going on? Saw basically none of it last year, and that's what made him so great early on. And it worries you because he's not coming back from an injury. Well, I guess he originally was, but not anymore at this point.
Right, he just hasn't played in like 2 seasons, so
yeah, he's just a little slow and a little rusty. I know the receivers over there have been, progressing. Donovan Peoples-Jones is probably not an ideal 1 or 2 or 3 receiver for any team or any quarterback. No offense, he's a good player, but like you're not going to rely on him.
He's not the star. He's a piece. He's not the centerpiece.
Everybody hates him because he's from Michigan, and everybody's an Ohio State fan in Ohio. So
yeah, we should probably warn you about that. You can slam anybody but Donovan Peoples-Jones because as soon as that happens, all the Michigan fans come out and say that the only reason we hate him is because he's from Michigan.
Yeah,
and
no, I like
this big thing.
I wanted the Jets to draft him, but I after seeing him play and everything, he's a good player. He's a nice piece, but
he's a piece.
I think
yeah,
a little too high up maybe on the depth chart last year for a quarterback to succeed. And even though they have a great running game, great offensive line, I don't know. He should have been better, right? Are we giving him just like it's been so long that he forgot how to play and he's a little rusty? And
you're talking about Deshaun Watson
again? Yeah, Deshaun Watson. I mean,
well, he progressively got better as the season went along. He played like 6 games, I think it was, and you'd expect after somebody hadn't played in 2 years, they're going to be garbage. And it was actually kind of a blessing in disguise that he got the 11 as opposed to the whole season, because then you can come out, trying to knock some of the rust off, see where you're really at, and then double down when the season ends and just say, look, what have I got to do to be ready for the next season? So there is the question mark with Deshaun Watson. I completely agree. As a Browns fan, I have to believe that my man is coming back. Even if I like him off the field or not, all I have to do is care if I like him on the field. So that's where I'm at with all this. Elliot, you want to jump in on this real quick while we're putting him on the spot? So all of our Browns friends will hate him.
Yeah, no, I think I think the Browns are over-invested in the quarterback position. I did not like the acquisition one little tiny bit. I think that they'd have been better off acquiring a journeyman quarterback and over-investing in defensive line.
Elliot, this is where we have to learn football. Your team runs through the quarterback, period. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. Let's move on to the Hall of Fame game since I've had the little banner up. So, Dan, what are the Jets' plans for the Hall of Fame game? Are we going to see anybody interesting? Reminding everyone that the field there has notoriously been a bad field to play on. I think I've already read that nobody's going to play except Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's going to play, so that should tell you what the Jets think of him. But go on. Yeah,
if you're looking for some interesting names to watch, Zach Wilson's interesting. We want to see if he's getting a little bit more comfortable, what he's learned from Rodgers. Mekhi Becton's on a pitch count. If he's able to get out there, I mean, he's one of those dudes that he's on a pitch count right now for Thursday, supposed to play. Wouldn't surprise me if he tweaked something on Wednesday, didn't end up suiting up, but can play. We got a pitch count for him. We're going to have some guys in the defensive line because that rotation is so deep. You can't, on a 90-man roster right now, you can't bench 10 guys. So you're going to see probably Will McDonald, our first-round pick. You're going to see Michael Clemens, who was a mid-round pick last year, a really good player, number 72. I'd like to see him flash against your offensive line. Maybe some young safety. Tony Adams is trying to earn a starting spot over Adrian Amos.
Yeah, there's some articles where your coaches seem to love that guy.
Yeah, I want to see if he plays, if they consider him a starter right now where he wouldn't play, or if they say, he's second year in the league as an undrafted guy last year. It's time to get him out on the field and just test him a little bit more. So he's a guy that I'd really keep an eye on. And then we're trying to figure out our linebackers because we lost Quan Alexander to the Pittsburgh Steelers a couple days ago.
Ooh.
He's a good player. He brings a lot of edge and toughness, and we don't have a third linebacker. And even though the Jets primarily play a nickel cornerback, they do have some base 4-3 sets, and we don't have a third guy. CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams are our 2 starters, and the other guy's completely up in the air. So looking at the other outside linebacker spot, is going to be a really interesting one for the Jets.
Elliot, you want to jump in on the Hall of Fame game?
Yeah, I think the game is for the people that are trying to make the team. The guys that are just playing to get in shape, I don't care about. I want to see the guys that are second, third, and fourth string because they'll be playing for their lives, and it will be an interesting game because of them.
So, Dan, do you normally watch the Hall of Fame game?
Yes, it's the first football game.
So do you have any like favorite memories from Hall of Fame games?
Not really. I mean, every year it's just like that feeling of sitting on the couch and being like, I can't believe I'm watching football right now. Like, this is crazy. Even though it's backup players. I don't know if it was the Cowboys last year or the year before. And you're just sitting back, just like, how is this happening right now? And I don't care if it's Ben DiNucci or somebody else playing the entire game. I love every minute of it. No, I mean, it's a little bit of a bummer. They don't really do the one thing that I always hated as a kid. I'm getting over it now, is that teams don't try to win in the preseason. I always just like, no, we got to go to overtime. We can win this. My dad's always like, no, we got to get out of this game. It's fine, lose. I'm like, but
yeah.
Don't you know that your whole season's riding on that preseason win? I mean, if you don't go 3-0, how are you supposed to go 0-16? I mean, come on.
The Ravens are pretty good in the preseason.
Yeah, Baltimore does that. They play to win. They're retarded. I'll tell you what I want is everybody that has a guaranteed contract.
You can't say that word, Elliot. You know that's not PC anymore, right?
No, I don't know that.
But you can't say the R word. You can't say that anymore.
Okay, well, I just did.
Well, stop.
I think that people that have guaranteed contracts should not play in the preseason. Just people that are trying to beat the team.
All right. So look, let me give you a couple things to watch for or at least some of the favorite things I've seen before we get to the Browns watch for. The favorite things I've seen on Hall of Fame games. One, there was the time that that idiot from the Steelers, I can't even think of his name anymore. I think it was Juju Smith-Schuster, was that Claypool idiot. I can't get too mad at Claypool. He went to Notre Dame. But anyway, Chase Claypool catches a 5-yard out, needed 6 yards for a first down on third down, catches the ball, runs out, sticks his arm out, drops the ball, and starts beating his chest that he got a 5-yard out in a freaking Hall of Fame game. Like, nobody cares. But that's the Steelers, right? They got to come out and celebrate with all their wide receivers and stuff. Did you see that one?
I didn't remember that was the Hall of Fame game, but I remember the play vividly. He's done a few really stupid things like that where you're just like, what is going on with this
you
guy,
got like 5 yards. It's like he's pulling I can see his face. I can't think of his name. Browns wide receiver, Jarvis Landry. He's pulling a Jarvis Landry, right? He's out there getting 5 yards when you need 6. And my other favorite memory from the Hall of Fame game was watching Joe Flacco on the sideline laughing after Lamar Jackson threw the ball straight to a defender and they pick-sixed him on his first pass attempt in the Hall of Fame game. And Joe Flacco's on the sideline laughing at him from the sideline. I thought that's Hall of Fame game football right there. So from a Browns perspective, I think we're just going to see a bunch of backups, and that's fine. I don't think we're going to go out there. I think the surface has been a question mark for a few years, and hopefully they've got that straightened out. But given that there's an extra preseason game being in the Hall of Fame game, I think we're going to see a lot of the Browns backups. We're going to see, I think we're going to see Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think is his name. I hope we get to see some of the new look Browns offense, because my theory is that we're not going to run that outside zone the way we have in the past. Like, I think that offense is this is what you run until you get a quarterback. And then when you get a quarterback, you run an actual NFL offense. But, I don't want to say that too loud. So my final question for you before, I just let you ramble on about the Jets for a little bit, is just give us your thoughts on Elijah Moore.
Elijah Moore, I didn't want to draft him when we got him. I was upset. Then he won me over in training camp by saying that he was going to do all the hard work, having awesome highlights, being super, just ripped, cut. The guy looks like he's just meant to play wide receiver. So all offseason I was seeing that. And then the games happened, and he kind of had some focus issues and some issues, obviously, with the Jets team. I worry right now because he's a kind of a training camp star. And I think that the Browns right now are kind of piping him up as to being a training camp star. And it's just like that's where I've seen him at his best. So
Well, at least it's good to know that this guy comes out and performs in training camp.
Because he runs beautiful routes. And if you have a quarterback that can hit him on those routes, Zach Wilson couldn't really do it. So it's really hard to gauge because we didn't have a guy that could hit him in that sort of like, he's right where you need him to be. He runs beautiful routes. He's got an edge to him. He's quick. He's not super big, but he loves the game. And yeah, if you can get the ball in his hands and find a way to like focus on him. Problem is like, the team was like 5-1 when he asked to be traded. And it was because he just wasn't getting the ball enough. And it didn't matter whether the team was doing well. It just mattered about him needing to take care of himself and not liking the offense we were running necessarily. So the next game after he requested a trade, the next game that he played, the Jets had him do pre-snap motion across the field every single play and never threw to him. And they just ran him back and forth, and they traded him a few weeks later.
We in Cleveland, we have a history of former New York wide receivers who are disgruntled me-type players. We've dealt with them before, so I think we're going to be okay.
We got Braylon Edwards from you, and we loved him.
Well,
Really?
We loved him. Yeah, he was awesome.
Braylon Edwards was a good wide receiver. This is the why Braylon Edwards is the guy.
Have a good year for the Jets, did he or did he?
Yeah, we made
Elliot's going to look this up, man.
back years, and he was a big part of it.
Braylon Edwards, I mean, he was a good player. The Browns weren't exactly the greatest when we had Braylon Edwards. And for whatever reason, he decided that the Browns fans didn't like him because he was from Michigan. This guy started the whole like Michigan thing. I personally think it's just garbage, but some people really don't like players because they're from Michigan. And not they're even from Michigan. It's just that they played in Michigan, which is really super dumb. They all like embrace Craig Krenzel, who won a national championship with Ohio State. He's from Michigan, but nobody cared about that because he played at Ohio State. I don't understand. But you guys have a team like that in college football in New York?
No, I'm in Connecticut, actually.
Okay.
So our team would be the Connecticut Huskies, and they are not good. And they're independent, so really
They don't like
watching it.
hate everybody from Yale or something like that?
No, I mean Boston College, I guess, but we had never beaten Boston College until last year. I'm actually kind of an Ohio State fan because my buddy went to Ohio State, and he's a big Ohio State fan. And when you don't have a great team around here, I got to kind of jump on his bandwagon and enjoy all the last 10 years or so of pretty awesome football.
Yeah. Don't you like Rutgers? Don't you have Rutgers there in New York?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not New York. I'm Connecticut.
Well, still, come on. Like from the Midwest, like being from Wisconsin is the same thing as being from Ohio to New Yorkers. So it's kind of like when you're on the East Coast, it's all the same state. It's just you take trains through.
Don't you guys consider yourselves in Ohio like kind of East Coast ish?
Oh, no,
coast.
we're Midwestern.
No, we think we're Midwest. Actually, we have an inferiority complex because
that's probably true too.
No, we really do. We have, the Chamber of Commerce calls Cleveland the North Coast of America.
I've never heard this. Heard this.
It's true.
Yeah.
You call Lake Erie the North Coast? What?
Yeah.
The North.
All right, hey, so we'll wrap this up here. Dan, let me give you a few minutes. Just say what you think you need to say about the Jets, or anything you want to say, so you feel like you've been treated fairly and not disrespectfully.
I feel fair. I feel like I've been treated fairly. I mean, we're Jets and Browns fans, so we can go back and forth and just kind of. It's part of the fun of it. No, I don't. Honestly, I have a question. I guess I'd be more curious because I'm going to watch the Hall of Fame game and I'm not as up to date on the Browns. If you're going to be playing backups, is there a matchup that you're most looking forward to seeing for like backups? Is there a position on your team that right now is being fought for as like a important backup, next man up, or even maybe a starter that we'd be able to see?
Elliot, if you got something you want on that, I'll let you go first before I jump on that.
Yeah, I would say also like the Jets, the backup running back position is very interesting because the Browns don't have any. They have a total of 12 NFL yards, actually 11 NFL yards behind Nick Chubb career. But I kind of like some of the undrafted guys. I like this guy, Nate McCrary, who's a recycled Baltimore Raven.
Boo.
And I think that he might be a good short yardage guy. So keep an eye on him. See if anybody's any good at all. The depth at wide receiver, I think, is reasonable. But running back is not reasonable. But there are some guys that run fast and maybe accelerate well.
How did that happen? You had like 6 good backup running backs.
We don't need any.
I know.
They're
Nick
all-
Chubb is it seemed like you had Dearness Johnson and you had Kareem Hunt. It was like whoever you put out there was just playing
Hey,
awesome.
So Dearness
Johnson.
Dearness Johnson, I think, was a free agent and left, or he's just unsigned. I don't know where that's at.
Yeah, no, he was a free agent. He left. He exercised his option. But the Browns, are really dumb. They didn't like him.
Look, Elliott's a fan of paying running back, so I don't know where you get on this, but you're gonna set off like a long discussion just accidentally here. So the Browns are just thinking that Ford, what's his first name? It's not Puna. It's not Puna Ford. It's the backup running back who has 12 yards. What's his name?
I know his name, but I forgot it because you said it.
Ford. The backup's Ford. He
got 12 yards.
Ford. Yeah, he was at Alabama. Then he went.
Ford has 12, and McCreary has -1. Jerome Ford.
He's Jerome Ford. I think. Yeah, he's fast. He has good hands. He's going to be a good fit for the offense.
Probably be good. Yeah,
he's going to be a good fit for the offense. He just hasn't gone out and done it. So, and for some odd reason, Browns fans think that if you give the ball to Nick Chubb like 20 times, you automatically win the game or some crap. So now that we're going to like an actual passing offense, which is analytics will tell you is the way to go with these things in the NFL, people are going to be upset that the offense doesn't run through Nick Chubb, but it's going to run through the quarterback, which it should. And that's what you guys are having in New York right now. The offense isn't going to run through the running back. It's going to run through Aaron Rodgers, which it should. But sometimes it takes a little bit for people to like get on board with the way people win in the NFL. So I would answer your question to say on the other side, besides the running back issue, players to watch. The Browns are going to that Jim Schwartz defense, which is very different from the Joe Woods, Robert Saleh defense. Okay, so they're going to a more double scheme gap, pressure the quarterback. Still very much the defensive line has to control the line of scrimmage to set up the linebackers and set up the defensive backs, which is what Saleh likes, which is what Joe Woods should have liked, but I don't know what he was thinking. So it'll be interesting to see if Jordan Elliott gets some time to play, what he's doing. Tommy Togiai would be another one to watch. That defensive tackle room, Siaki Ika coming in out of Baylor would be another interesting one to watch. The defensive end room, you're talking about some guys on the bubble because they brought in Ogbo Ogbanaya as a free agent. They brought in, I can't think of his name from Minnesota right now, just totally lost it. The guy from Minnesota who was a linebacker, basically they may put his – say it again? Zadarius Smith, that's right.
Yeah,
his foot on the ground, might put his hand on the ground and make him a 4-3 defensive end, which would be a new thing for him in his career. And then we're talking Myles Garrett out there defensive end. So you've got like 3 people out of defensive end. You got Isaiah Thomas, who is related to Isaiah Thomas, I think, the basketball player, which we all hate, by the way. And a couple other guys, I can't think of their names. And they drafted a guy out of Missouri, which I was pretty happy about because Missouri plays very good technique defensive line in a double gap type scheme as opposed to a single gap scheme. So that defensive end group is another one to watch to see what they're going to be doing and see what they're doing to start with, and then how good are they doing it. So that's what I'm looking forward to the Hall of Fame game. What's the defensive line going to do? The offense, just I want to see schematically. It's going to be a vanilla kind of situation because it's like a preseason game and you've been together for like a week. So you may have like 4 plays installed or something. So I'm not real interested in what they're doing on offense. The question just is, can they stop anybody, and what's the defense going to look like?
Yeah, so I think it's worth reminding everyone that's going to be watching it that this is the very first game, and it basically being the extra preseason game, it basically replaces like a scrimmage. So it's going to be very vanilla style backups and not to put too much into it. Maybe treat week 2 as kind of like the week 1 where they're really starting to gel a little bit.
No. Whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl.
And now we're talking like Browns fans. Everything rides on week 0 of the preseason.
Well, we better win it.
Yeah, better go out and win it because, gosh darn it, what are we going to do if we don't have Deshaun Watson out there throwing passes?
Yeah.
All right,
I think he needs to play the whole game because he was rusty last year, so he better play the entire game or else
also look for
if he doesn't play Deshaun Watson the entire
or if Nick Chubb doesn't get 20 carries in this game.
Yeah.
The other thing to watch for is what Browns player is in the doghouse and it's going to be punished by having to play the whole game. We've done that in the past too. So I'm mad at this guy, so he's going to play the whole game. Like, okay, how does that punish him at all? You're going to play him more?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Well,
guys, it's like we don't believe in you yet. You got to earn it. Like you're going to be playing on all levels here.
No, I think this guy went out and did something wrong and broke team rules, so they played him the entire game. Like,
okay.
That was the punishment. The punishment is you're getting more playing time because you broke the rules.
Oh yeah, that was
crazy.
One of the drug addict wide receivers. I forgot his name, but yeah,
Antonio Callaway.
Callaway.
The guy who was arrested a bunch of times for the Florida Gators, and they drafted him anyway, and the GM had to come out and apologize for drafting him. Come on, man. Keep up on Browns football, Elliot. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. So that wraps up our show for tonight, guys. Thanks for sticking along for a whole hour of this, of Elliot and I harassing Dan. Thanks for coming in, Dan, and putting up with us and putting up with our stuff. Encourage other people. Just lie and say you had a good time and that it's fun to come on our show and that we're actually normal people.
I love it. Would love to come back. I hope it goes well.
Banking for week 17, baby.
Rather at the game 17 or something there. Week 17.
Week 17.
We'll see
all right.
Time.
Thanks for being on, guys. And just a reminder, everybody, you're listening to Football Philosophy and Rocket Science. We're part of the Fans First Sports Network, a part of the Fanatical Elves Network. And Dan here is from the Fans First Sports Network. And what's your guys' network name again?
This is the Jet Life. It's just me.
The Jet Life. And hope it's a good life.
It's the Jet Life. That's
Jet Life.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to Football Philosophy and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell all your friends to give a listen. You can follow Joel on Twitter at The Left Guard and Elliot at The Village Elliot.